Meantime, Governor Palin's relationship with the facts during the debate getting the full day after treatment. The governor was prolific in misstatements, repeating a McCain claim that Obama voted to raise taxes on Americans earning more than $42,000 a year, except it was a non-binding budget resolution, and it was actually about middle-class tax cuts while allowing a tax hike for the wealthiest Americans. Particularly noteworthy, that moment when Senator Biden said that McCain did not support new bankruptcy laws to help homeowners avoid foreclosure. Governor Palin said that is not so. Then she abruptly changed the subject to energy. Now we know why. She was lying. Even McCain spokesman Brian Rogers today corrected her. The McCain campaign would not give judges the ability to keep homeowners from defaulting on their mortgages. On the surge in Iraq, Governor Palin was wrong left, right, and center, saying U.S. troop levels in Iraq are at pre-surge levels. False. That Senator Obama had never admitted that the surge had worked. False. Strenuously asserting that the commander in Afghanistan said that an Iraq-style surge would work in Afghanistan. That commander said basically the opposite, that surge wasn't a word he would fit in Afghanistan. General Petraeus concurring. And Palin got that Afghanistan commander's name wrong. It's General David McKiernan, not General McClellan. He was from the Civil War. Governor Palin repeated the lie that Senator Obama voted against funding for the troops, added that Senator Biden had supported McCain's Iraq policies until this presidential campaign. Two falses there. Indeed, almost every fact that Governor Palin deigned to touch, she got wrong. A virtual encyclopedia of error, including these subjects: Darfur, divesting Alaskan funds from the Sudan. She tried to stop that. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict in general, global warming, man-made or not, she once said it was not. McCain's health care plan, a still non-existent natural gas pipeline in Alaska, she says under construction. Even the powers of the vice presidency. The governor saying, quote, "I'm thankful the Constitution would allow a bit more authority given to the vice president if that vice president so chose to exert it." Well, that's not a lie, that's a threat. We're assuming McClellan for McKiernan was a mishearing or a Freudian slip about Scott. So I'm counting 12 lies in that debate, so I owe the Alaska Special Olympics another $1,200 in donations. Let's call in the Washington editor of The Nation magazine, Chris Hayes. Good evening, Chris.
Hey, Keith, how you doing?
We'll get to some of those specifics momentarily, but at the heart of that performance at the debate last night, isn't it important at the heart of this to answer the actual questions you're asked? Because part of the idea of a debate is, if you're elected, you don't get to pick your crises, nor the order in which those crises appear, and the debate is really the only thing even resembling a test of whether you can quickly handle areas that are not in the forefront of your mind.
I think that's a fair point. And the most egregious example of that last night was on the nuclear weapons question, in which she was asked what would trigger American use of nuclear weapons. And after saying that it would be the be-all and end-all for so many people and places around the world, she then turned that around to answering a question about other people getting nuclear weapons. So that was a sort of object lesson in how she was doing this. I will say that you can overstate the degree to which a rhetorical toolbox that makes an able candidate makes someone good at governing. But the place in which they overlap is a basic fluency in a wide, vast array of topics, because you're going to be having things, as you said, thrown at you all the time as the president or the vice president, and you need to have run your mind over these various things at some point so you can just synthesize the information being sent at you, and I think she showed herself incapable of that at this point.
Yeah, it can be a five and dime, or it can be the highest end department store, but you have to be able to serve more than a couple of products and more than a couple of customers at the same time. She was, in nearly every respect, a generic talking point generating machine, which almost by definition includes misstatements about your opponent's positions, but then getting other facts right would seem all the more imperative, like military leaders and their positions and their opinions more than their positions as military leaders. I mean, that seemed like such a minor thing, McClellan, McKiernan, but it does sort of open up a whole vein of room for error, if you will.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I think the McKiernan-McClellan thing, as you just said, I think it's on the spectrum of all the falsity that has been flying from the McCain-Palin campaign. I mean, that's really, really low on the list. I think the much more troublesome thing is the fact that, the entire mystique, aura, and message of Sarah Palin is sort of a tissue of lies. There's no, even I remember even an interview a few weeks ago or a stump speech in which she said that Alaska had 20% of the energy production in the States, and that's why she knows so much about energy. It has 3.5% of the energy production. So even these basic pillars of the Sarah Palin appeal are kind of, wedged in this foundation of sand. And that's what you see whenever you get any kind of sustained exposure to her, whether in a debate or on the stump or in an interview.
Yeah, it was 20%. First, it was 20% of oil and gas.
Right.
Then it was 20% of energy, and it's 13% of the oil and gas, and as you said, 3.5% of the energy. All right, but apart from energy, which is her expertise area, she kept turning the subject back to that. There were no major subjects that passed through this equation unscathed. She was asked about the powers of the vice presidency, and she said something about the Constitution, as I read it earlier, allowing flexibility and a bit more authority. What was it? Was that a huge mistake? Was that too much time watching Dick Cheney? Was it throwing a bone to the base? Or is that some sort of actual position that we need to worry about in the election?
Well, look, let's be honest here for a second. I mean, Sarah Palin is not, in a very crucial sense, Dick Cheney, which is that what we've learned about Dick Cheney is the man managed to pull off effectively a kind of coup in which he both got himself nominated to be vice president and basically was pulling the strings for much of the administration. Sarah Palin, meanwhile, isn't being told that the McCain campaign is pulling their staff from Michigan. So I think in one crucial respect, if there's some small solace in the entire Sarah Palin fiasco, it's that I think we can be fairly confident that we're not going to see this imperial vice presidency under her stewardship.
Well, she could have an advisor next to her who could be doing the Dick Cheney role while she speaks it. There's always that nightmare scenario.
Right. They'll keep Addington on.
Well, I'm not going to sleep this weekend. Chris Hayes, the Washington editor of The Nation. Thanks as always for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Keith.